Nobody told you about the script. That's the part that gets people. Not that the script exists. Deep down, most people sense something is off. Something is quietly steering their life in a direction they never consciously chose. What gets people is that the script was written before they were old enough to have an opinion about it. And you've been following it ever since. Think about the last time you made a major financial decision, a job offer, an investment, a purchase you told yourself you deserved. Now ask yourself honestly, did that decision come from you? From your actual logic, your own framework, your deliberate thinking? Or did it come from a voice that doesn't sound like yours but speaks in your accent, uses your vocabulary, and feels completely natural? That voice has a name. You just don't know it yet. There's a specific kind of poverty that doesn't look like poverty at all. It has a mortgage. It has a decent car. It takes vacations. It argues online about politics and feels strongly about fairness. It is not hungry. It is not visibly suffering. But it is completely, systematically, almost architecturally trapped. And the cruelest part is that it feels like freedom. You grew up in a house where money was either never discussed or always argued about. It was either a secret or a wound. Never a tool. Never a language you were taught to speak fluently. The adults around you worked hard, genuinely, exhaustingly hard, and still somehow never moved. They were good people, moral people. People who believed that doing the right thing would eventually add up to something. They were not wrong about their character. They were wrong about the system, because the system was not designed to reward hard work. It was designed to reward leverage. And no one taught you the difference. When you were a child, you watched how money moved in your house. You watched the anxiety before the first of the month. You watched how the conversation changed when a bill arrived. You watched someone you loved shrink a little in the presence of someone wealthier. And your brain, which is a learning machine, not a moral one, cataloged of it, not as memory, as identity. By the time you were a teenager, you had already absorbed a complete economic worldview. You believed that wanting too much was dangerous, that rich people were probably dishonest, that security was better than ambition, that a stable job, even an unhappy one, was responsible, that risk was for people who could afford to lose, which meant it wasn't for people like you. None of these beliefs came with a label. None of them announced themselves as beliefs at all. They felt like common sense, like obvious truth, like the natural way things are. That is how conditioning works, not through force, through familiarity. The deepest programming doesn't feel like programming. It feels like you so you followed the script. You got the grades. You got the degree, maybe, or the trade, or the certification. Whatever the adults around you said was the path to making it. You entered the workforce with a vague but sincere belief that if you did everything right, something would eventually open up. Some ceiling would lift. Some reward would arrive proportional to your effort. You were waiting for the system to notice you. It never does. Years pass in this phase, sometimes a decade. You're not failing. That's the thing. By most external measures, you're succeeding. Promotions happen. Your credit score improves. You hit milestones the people around you celebrate. And somewhere inside you, there's a quiet but persistent dissonance, like a note played slightly flat. Not wrong enough to stop the song, but wrong enough that something in you keeps waiting for it to resolve. It doesn't resolve. You just learn to stop noticing it. Until one day something small happens. It's never a dramatic event. It's never an epiphany in a movie theater or a conversation with a wise stranger. It's something almost embarrassingly minor. A number, a conversation, a calculation you do on a Tuesday afternoon that shows you mathematically, plainly, that the road you're on does not go where you thought it did. You're not on a path to wealth. You're on a path to survival with better furniture. And something shifts, not dramatically, not loudly, just enough. You start reading, you start listening, you start pulling at threads that don't fit the worldview you were handed. You discover that wealthy people, not lucky wealthy, not inherited wealthy, but genuinely self-created wealthy, think about money in a completely different language. Not just different strategies, different grammar, different fundamental assumptions about what money is, what time is, what risk is, what work is for. You realize you've been playing chess your whole life, but someone replaced the board with a checkers board and told you the rules were the same. This is where most people think things improve. They don't, because awareness is not transformation. Awareness is the beginning of a war that happens entirely inside you, mostly invisible, often exhausting, and almost never acknowledged by the people around you. Here's what nobody tells you about waking up financially. The people you love will not understand what's happening to you, and because they don't understand it, they will, with the best intentions in the world, try to stop it. Not out of malice, out of love, because the thing you're becoming looks, from the outside, a lot like instability. It looks like you're chasing something. It looks like you've gotten above yourself. And the voice inside you, that original programmed voice, will agree with them. Every time you try to invest instead of spend, the script speaks. Every time you consider leaving a stable job for something uncertain but potentially transformative, the script speaks. Every time you're in a room with people who are genuinely wealthy, and you feel that ancient, inherited shame, that bone-deep sense of not belonging, that is the script speaking. And it sounds exactly like wisdom. So you take the first action anyway, not because you're brave. Bravery implies you're not afraid. You take it while you're afraid, while the voice is still talking. You make the investment, or you start the business, or you make the call you've been avoiding, and you wait to see what happens. What happens usually is nothing, or less than nothing. The first attempt fails quietly, or it succeeds partially in a way that feels like failure, because the gap between where you are and where you're trying to get still looks infinite. You run the numbers, and they're better than before, but not good enough. And that is its own particular cruelty. Progress that doesn't feel like progress, because the standard you're measuring against has changed, but the emotional baseline hasn't. This is the grind, not the romantic version, not the montage. The actual version. The actual version is sitting with uncertainty for months. It's making decisions with incomplete information and no guarantee. It's watching people around you make safe choices and feel something you can't quite name. Is it jealousy? Relief that you're not them? Guilt that you want something different? It's all three, cycling through you on the same afternoon. It's explaining to someone you care about why you're not spending money on something that, to them, seems completely normal and reasonable. It's watching them look at you like you've changed, and knowing that you have, and not being sure yet whether the change is worth the cost. The hidden truth of this phase is that the grind is not really about money. It's about identity. You are trying to become someone that your original programming says you are not allowed to be. And every day that you push against that, you pay a tax. Not financial, psychological. The tax is doubt. The tax is isolation. The tax is the low, persistent hum of wondering if you've made a terrible mistake. Most people quit here, not because they lack intelligence or discipline, because the psychological cost becomes unbearable without a clear signal that it's working. Then something small happens, not the big result, not the life-changing number, something small. A deal closes. A return comes in. A decision you made 6 months ago pays off in a way that's modest by objective standards, but enormous by personal ones, because it proves something you've been trying to believe for a long time. The system is learnable. That is the real first result. Not the money. The proof. The proof that the people who built wealth from nothing did not have access to some mystical knowledge unavailable to you. They just ran different software. And you can too. But here is where something unexpected happens. And most financial content never mentions this. The first real result breaks something in you. Not in a bad way, but genuinely, structurally. It breaks something that you didn't know was holding you together. When you were operating from scarcity, from the inherited belief that wealth was not for people like you, there was a strange comfort in it. The limitations were painful, but they were familiar. They were a known quantity. The ceiling was low, but at least you knew exactly where it was. You could plan your life around it. When the ceiling moves, when you actually prove to yourself that it can move, the familiar discomfort is replaced by something worse. Responsibility. Because now you can't blame the system entirely. Now you can't say people like me don't get there. You've gotten somewhere, small, but real, and that means the next level of failure is yours, not the system's, not your upbringing's, yours. And your brain, which has spent your whole life rehearsing narratives of external limitation, does not know what to do with that. Success in this phase doesn't feel like success. It feels like the removal of an excuse you didn't know you were depending on. This is the moment where self-sabotage becomes genuinely dangerous. Not the obvious kind, not reckless spending or catastrophically bad decisions. The subtle kind. The kind where you unconsciously slow down, where you get busy with things that don't matter, where you start second-guessing the very decisions that worked, where you pick fights or withdraw, or find reasons that this particular opportunity isn't the right one. The people around you are adjusting to a version of you that doesn't quite fit the role they had you in, and some of them, without meaning to, will pull, not dramatically, just subtly, consistently, applying the soft gravity of familiarity, reminding you, not with words, of who you were before. And part of you will want to go back, not because it was better, because it was known. The external world starts reflecting your internal shift in ways that are both exhilarating and isolating. The conversations you can have are different. Now, the things that concern you have changed. You think about time differently, not as something you exchange for money, but as the actual raw material of wealth, the thing that either compounds or erodes depending on how it's directed. You look at financial products and see mechanisms, not mysteries. You look at people still living the script and you feel something complicated. Not superiority. That's too clean. Something more like grief, because you see yourself in them. You remember exactly how the script felt from the inside, how reasonable it seemed, how invisible it was, how warm its limitations were, and you understand that you cannot explain what you now know in the language of people who haven't started to see it yet. Not because the ideas are complicated, because the resistance isn't intellectual. It's cellular. It lives in the body as much as in the mind. You are not the same person who started this, and that is simultaneously the point in the loss. The identity shift is real, not metaphorical. The person who grew up with money as a wound or a secret or a forbidden topic has been replaced, not erased. Replaced by someone who sees money as a system, learnable, navigable, built by humans with specific intentions, containing specific vulnerabilities that can be exploited by people who understand the rules. But the old version doesn't fully leave. It becomes a passenger. It rides along. And sometimes when you're tired or scared or the stakes are high, it climbs back into the driver's seat. And you have to sit with the discomfort of noticing that, accepting it and choosing anyway. This is not discipline. Discipline is a performance. What this requires is something quieter and harder. It requires consistently choosing a future self over a present feeling. Every day, in small decisions mostly, not in dramatic moments. The dramatic moments are easy. It's the Tuesday afternoons that determine everything. The weight of the script doesn't fully lift. You just stop mistaking it for your own voice, because here's what was always true, even when you didn't know it. The script was never yours. It was a hand-me-down, generations old, stitched together from the fears and real limitations of people who came before you. They were working with different information in a different world with different options. They gave you what they had, but you are not them. You are not their ceiling. You are not their fear. The script was written for a world that no longer fully exists, by people who were trying to keep you safe in a way that kept you still. And following it faithfully as you have, was never a character flaw. It was loyalty. You were loyal to people who loved you. Now, loyalty looks different. Now, loyalty to the people who gave you that script means showing them something they couldn't show themselves. Not telling them, showing them. Not with lectures or with contempt, but with a life that quietly, unmistakably demonstrates that the ceiling they believed in was always a suggestion, not a fact. Remember what started this. The quiet unease on a Tuesday afternoon. The calculation that didn't add up. The note played slightly flat that you stopped hearing, but that was always there. That unease was not anxiety. That unease was accuracy. Your body knew before your mind admitted it. The path you were on was not going to the place you actually wanted to go. The gap between the life you were performing and the life you were capable of was growing, not closing with every year of faithful script following. The discomfort was the truth. You just didn't have a language for it yet. Here is what's real. Wealth is not a reward for virtue. It is not a punishment for vice. It is a system. It has inputs and outputs. It has mechanics. It has leverage points. It has blind spots that the people at the top prefer you to never discover, not out of conspiracy, but out of the simple human desire to maintain advantage. The middle class is not an income bracket. It is a belief system. It is a specific relationship with time and risk and money and identity, reinforced daily by media, by education, by the people closest to you, by the structure of the financial products available to you, and by a voice inside you that has been whispering the same quiet instruction since you were old enough to watch the adults in your house. Stay safe. Stay here. Don't get above yourself. That voice is not your enemy. It is just old. It is just working from outdated information, from a map of the world drawn before you were born. You are allowed to draw a new map, not because you are special, not because you are chosen, because you are awake, because at some point, a specific, unremarkable, utterly ordinary moment, you decided to stop accepting the script and start questioning who wrote it. That is not a small thing. In a world designed to keep you comfortable enough to stay still, choosing to move is the most subversive thing you can do. The script expected you to get to the end of your life and call it a good run. You have other plans. If something in this landed differently than you expected, not as motivation, not as hype, but as recognition that's worth sitting with. What you recognized is real, and you already know what to do with it. More capital.